Okay, let's move on to our first article of the day. Chinese supercomputer and American doctor clash over AI coronavirus diagnosis of a young U.S. vapor. A supercomputer found in China found that a young vapor in hospital for a mysterious pneumonia in the United States last summer could have been coronavirus. The, the machine detected distinguished features suggesting high probability of Convid-19 in a CAT image of a patient who became severely ill between July and August in North Carolina, according to a diagnosis report seen by the South China Morning Post. The machine is at the National Supercomputer Center in Taiwan. The feature includes white patches encroaching on the lower parts of the lungs, and ammonia raises the eyebrows of some radiologists and at the early stages in the outbreak, because it was rarely seen in other types of ammonia. What the image shows, the features of COVID-19 and comprehensive diagnostics is recommended in contribution with the epidemiological information and other clinical characteristics, said the report generated by the artificial intelligence. The patient was one of 5 people who showed up at the Wake Med Hospital in Raggett, North Carolina, at the same time with accurate lung injuries, according to the information on the website of the U.S. Centers and Disease Control and Prevention. Aged between 25 and 35, these 5 patients experienced similar symptoms, including shortness of breath, nausea, vomiting, uncomfortable stomach, and fever. All 5 patients were hospitalized for hyperoxic respiratory failure. 3 required intensive care for acute respiratory distress syndrome, one of which required interim and mechanical ventilation, said the U.S. CDC Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. Doctors ran tests for influenza and other known pathogens to identify the cause of the infection, and the rebuttal came back negative. All patients survived, and the cases were added to the U.S. CDC in a pool of hundreds of patients potentially associated with the vaping or the smoking of electronic cigarettes that occurred last year. Vaping has increased rapidly in the U.S. in the recent years. Dr. Kevin, who led the medical team, explained that these patients at Wake Med defended the original diagnostic. The Chinese supercomputer could have made a mistake, according to the Davidson, because the features it identified in the CAT images were not unique at all. This findings on the chest CAT aggregor ground glass infiltrates is highly non-specific, and it is seen in many types of infections, he wrote in his email response. Other viral infections, accurate luring injury from inhalants and drug toxicity, albumin's lung diseases, and some environmental exposure could result in similar patterns, according to Davidson. What Teflon identified could therefore be an overlap between the Convid and vaping patients. Davidson added that there was no evidence suggesting that the 5 patients were connected to a single source of contagious outbreak, and they saw no sign of community spread in the neighborhood. Other cases occurred in summer 2019 were not clustered into groupings, as would be expected with communicable disease, he said, and they have rapidly dissipated without any recurrence. Stay tuned for my thoughts on this, or questions. Okay, so we just wrapped up the first article, and my questions for you on this article. What do you think? Do you think that this was a trial in the virus testing and response time, of the professionals and the supercomputer. Was the virus around last July? What do you think about vaping? Is it acceptable and safe? Leave your comments below. I'd love to hear. Let's move on to the next topic. Hi. The small clip you saw was brought to you by Loyal World News. If you like what you saw, you should subscribe and look up my daily Loyal World News report for its full version. If you don't want to watch it on YouTube, prefer to be on the road, I also have a podcast in every full-length video I put up.